So I want you to find a seat on your mat today, just a comfortable seat to start. And then you can also use some of your props to sit underneath you as well. So if you like to get a little bit more cushion, you can take your blanket, slide it underneath the seats, and then start to sit up tall. So we're gonna settle into this first pose, and we'll spend a little bit of time here. And then we'll talk a little bit about Yin Yoga. So grounding down through your sit bones, that's your glute muscles, your hip bones, just feeling them connected. And then starting to sit up really tall. So lengthen through the spine, as if you're trying to stretch your spine as tall as it can go. And then take the shoulders, roll them up, and then roll them back down. So this is gonna be a lot more grounding practice. We're gonna stay a lot more connected to our mat today. So I'll just have you take your palms and then just rest them gently on top of your thighs. And then start to close the eyes. And start to settle that mind with your breath. Taking a slow inhale in. And a slow exhale out. So your breath in Yin is really just keeping it circular, trying to keep an even inhale in and a slow exhale out. Yin Yoga is a very different style of yoga practice compared to what you see out there. It's very passive and down on our mats. We hold poses for time instead of breath. So today we'll be in poses from anywhere to a minute up to 5 minutes. We fully support the body so that the muscles can start to do the work. We're working on getting that deeper, intense stretch within the body. So working on fascia, joints, ligaments, a lot of other things that we do in our lives work the outer muscles. And so Yin is going to really focus on those deeper muscles within the body. And so today we're really going to work on those hamstrings. We'll touch with the hips and a lot of other places within our body, but really the focus today is on stretching out those legs. So we're really lengthening through the spine and sitting up tall, and then using this breath as a tool to calm the mind. And so once we find ourselves in these poses, the first thing is just to get the mind to settle down. We all have that kind of brain that tends to run sometimes 100 miles per hour. And in order to get into the Yin Yoga poses and really let them do their work, the first step is to really calm and comfort the mind. And so that's where this breath comes in handy. So slowly inhaling in and slowly exhaling out. And then next I want you to do a scan with the body. I want you to, from the head down to the toes, just kind of bring awareness to how the body is feeling today. You notice that any areas are feeling a little bit more stiff than others. Just bring that awareness to them. And then seeing if you can work on softening through those areas. As you start to settle in with that breath. We'll take 3 more full inhales and exhales here. So slowly inhaling in and visualizing the breath going all the way down the spine, down to the tailbone. Full inhale in, and then slow exhale out the same way. Full inhale in, and slow exhale out. Last breath. And slow exhale out. All right, start to blink the eyes open. And we'll start to set up for our first pose, which is reclined butterfly. So we're gonna support the body quite a bit. First things first, I want you to take your blanket. I want you to unfold it so it's a big, large rectangle. And then slowly roll it up. So it becomes one long, almost like, I like to call them blanket burritos. And then place that just on your side. Next, I want you to grab all your pillows and stack them in front of each other. So you kind of have this nice little long little bed created with your pillows. Your low back is gonna come to that first pillow, and then the soles of your feet are gonna come together. So this is what we call butterfly pose. So soles of the feet coming to touch, and then the knees are gonna be out wide. And then you're placing that low back against your props. And then the blanket goes on top of the feet to start. Next, gently tuck the blanket by the legs. So this is supporting the shins and then your full legs in this pose. So the legs aren't just hanging out there. So if we have intense on the inner part of our hip already, then we're supporting it so that the body can just naturally be in this position. Next, we'll take the arms, we'll lock them down, and we'll lay gently on our props. And then start to let the body settle into the pose. Make those little micro adjustments to make sure that we are supported and that we can find stillness here. And then your options for your hands, they can just fall beside the body. Or you can also place one hand on the heart and one hand on the belly. And we will be here for 5 minutes. And if at any point this becomes intense on those hips, you can just bend the knees and tent them as well. So bringing the knees back together. But stay here for a little bit, let the hips open, close the eyes, and then start to use that breath to calm the mind and the body down. Taking a full inhale in, taking a slow exhale out. There will be a lot of times where there's going to be a lot of stillness and quietness. I try to limit what I speak during these poses so that you can really start to settle in and just focus on your breath. So if that stillness, you start to find the mind wandering, you just shift your focus and count your inhales and exhales. So slow the mind down by giving it something to focus on. So maybe inhaling in for 3 to 4 seconds and counting, and then slowly exhaling out for 3 to 4 seconds. If you have one hand on the heart and one hand on the belly, go ahead and switch up the hands. So opposite hand comes to the belly, opposite hand comes to the heart. About a minute remaining in this pose. Your hands are on the heart and the belly. We'll go ahead and lower them down to besides the body or right beside the body. And then gently start to bring the knees together. So feet are going to plant on your mat. And then to counterpose the hips being open, we're going to take our feet and just walk onto the edge of our yoga mat and then keeping the knees together. So just a little inward rotation of the hips. And then slowly bring the feet back to in line with your hip bones. And just gently rock them side to side. So they can go as far as you'd like on each side, or just, gently get some movement back into the hips. Just finding a little bit of rock and sway side to side. All right, elbows are going to press into the mat, and then you're going to slowly walk yourselves back up to a seated position. And we'll go ahead and take our blanket, just gently put it off to the side, and then remove the pillows off of your mat, and then we're going to come all the way back down to that flat back. But before we get down there, go ahead and grab your strap or a towel or whatever we're going to use, and find your way all the way down to your mat. So on your back, knees are going to be bent. Tuck the shoulders away from the ears, and then we're going to stretch into the hamstrings here. So working with that right leg, you're going to take your strap, your towel, whatever it is, around the right foot, about the arch of the foot, and then extend that foot up towards the ceiling. So flexing. And then try to relax through the shoulders. So try to let everything else just kind of fall down. And then gently pull that right leg towards the upper body. So about 3 minutes here of holding this hamstring stretch, and then we'll move on to the other leg. So you can always have a soft bend in the knee, making sure that we're not completely locking out that joint. So just a soft bend, and then just easing into the stretch. So you want to find your appropriate edge. So as I like to say, once you find that stretch, once you find the muscle starting to work, stay there. We don't want to jump right into the deepest part of the stretch that we can. We want to really ease into letting those muscles, the fascia, the joints, everything kind of start to loosen up with time. And so you're gently easing into the pose. So if it works better to move with your breath, you take an inhale in, and then you exhale, maybe just move that leg a little bit. And then just work on your edge where the muscle feels tight, where it needs to stretch. And then you can gently keep moving. You can also stay right where you are. If this is pretty intense and you have tight hamstrings, stay right here. Keep actively flexing that right foot, pushing this heel of the right foot towards the ceiling. About a minute left here with the right leg, and then we'll switch it up to the left. All right, slowly release the right leg from the strap. And then readjust the body if you need to. If you need to make the back, the low back a little bit more comfortable, and then we'll move on to that left leg. So bring the strap, the towel, whatever you're using, your band around that left foot, flex. And then start to relax through the shoulders. Let everything melt down to the mat, and then just really work on flexing that left foot and stretching through that left hamstring. A lot of times within yin yoga poses, you'll find yourself having this fight or flight sensation within the body. It's that urge to get out of the pose. And when we start to get that sensation, that's when the pose is starting to do the most work. And so if you can encourage your mind to let you stay there and know that you're where you're supposed to be, then your body's going to get the most benefit out of yin poses. Once again, finding your edge. So right where you start to feel that engagement in the muscle, where it starts to feel like it's stretching, stay there. You might stay here the whole time. But if it starts to loosen up and you start to feel that sensation start to ease up a little bit, then you can start to pull the left leg slowly towards the upper body. Okay, just about a minute left here. And then just notice where we might be holding any extra tension within the body. So sometimes we transfer that energy when we have tight muscles to other areas of our body. So if you are gripping in the jaw, try to relax through the jaw. If you're holding that tension in your shoulders, try to relax through the shoulders. Let this last minute just really be about that left hamstring. All right, slowly release the left leg from the strap. Go ahead and set your strap off to the side, and then if you want to gently rock the knees side to side here, or maybe even just straightening the legs, bending them, straightening them, just getting a little bit of movement back into the body. We counter pose all of our yin poses so that we can get those muscles to start to loosen up again, especially since we've been holding them in a position for time. And then when you're ready, you can start to slowly make your way up back to a seat on your mat, and then we will work on getting our next pose set up, which is going to be a caterpillar pose. One of two things here. It's going to depend on how the hamstrings feel and the low back. So this is how we're going to use our towel or our blanket if we have tight hamstrings. The full pose is to get the legs straight out in front of you, and then the feet are going to be about hip distance apart. And then this is where we're going to bring a little bit of awareness to our body. So if we have tight hamstrings, I'm going to have you take your blanket and just slide it underneath the knees so they get a little bit of elevation and they don't have to be flat on your mat. If you sit in this pose and you're immediately feeling it in your low back, then I want you to either slide your blanket underneath your sit bones or even a pillow. So that's just going to depend on how that low back is feeling in this pose. So the other props that you're going to need are going to be your blankets, or your pillows, and then maybe even a book too. So the book can help elevate the pillows up just a little bit. So by taking that book and just placing it on your thighs, and then placing the pillow on top, maybe the next pillow, and then sitting up really tall. So this pose is going to also stretch our spine and our hamstrings. Now, you can start to fold forward if it feels okay in the low back, and then just rest your head on your pillows. And you might have to stack a couple of pillows up here. I have 3 just in case, because I have super tight hamstrings. And so for me, it gets really intense the minute I start to fold forward. So I want you to use your props, and then there's no need to reach your toes. You can either put the hands in that general direction, or the hands can also just kind of fall beside the body. This one, we are going to be here for 5 minutes. And so I want you to be able to feel the body fully supported. And then just let the chin rest on your props. And then bring awareness to any areas in the body that might be holding tension. So if it's the low back, if it's the hamstrings, if it's the neck, the shoulders, let's try to soften through those areas with breath. So taking your inhales in, and then maybe soften through the shoulders. Take a full breath in. Maybe send that breath to that low back. Take an inhale in. Relax through the jaw. We're about halfway in this pose. So this is where you have some options. You can maybe pull a layer of pillows away if you would like. You can also stay right where you are. There's nothing that says that you have to be any deeper in the pose than your body wants to be. And you can also adjust the block or your book or your pillows, and then see if you can just maybe ease a little bit deeper into the pose. And when we say deeper, we're only moving our body just like a little micro inch, like a small little movement. Just about a minute left. All right, we're slowly gonna make our way out of this pose. So it took us a while to set it up. It's just gonna take equally as long to get out. So first things first, start to lift the upper body up. Then take all of your props, set them off to the side. And then first thing, bring those hands behind and then gently bend in one knee and then the other. The first counter pose that we're gonna do is just gently rocking the knees side to side. So just getting a little movement back into that low back and the hips. The next counter pose for caterpillar is going to be a reverse tabletop. Totally optional, you can keep rocking the hips side to side. Hands will come behind the body. Fingertips are gonna point towards those sit bones and then hands are flat on the mat. And then pressing through the feet, the hands just lift the hips up and then let the head hang heavy behind. There's also a nice little stretch for the shoulders, the chest, the upper body as well. All right, slowly lower it back down. And then before we get into our next pose, I want you guys to come into tabletop position on your mats. And then we'll get a little bit of movement back in the spine. So moving through cow-cat, inhale, lower that belly, lift the gaze. And exhale, rounding the spine, coming into cat pose. So we've been on our mats quite a bit just in a seated position. So just letting that low back and the spine get a little bit of movement here. And then you can also do C shapes by moving the hips and the shoulders side to side. That feels needed in your practice. Right. We're gonna get a little deeper into those hamstrings and the hip flexor. So take your blanket, roll it out, and then fold it so that you can just place it on your mat and then let the knees have a little bit of cushion. So knees will come directly onto your blanket, and then we will get all of our props towards the top of our mat. So if you're using pillows, if you're using blocks, just want you to have them all handy, and also you can use your books as well. It's kind of a preference here as to what kind of props that you have and then where we're gonna go with this. So I like to just have everything within arm's reach so that I can grab for it when I need. The next one is going to be dragon pose, and we will be here for about 3 minutes. And this is a really good pose where you can really practice that breath and using it to calm your mind and your body, because this pose tends to bring out a lot of emotions and intensity into our hips and our hip flexors. So starting in a tabletop position, you'll take your right foot and just place it on the outside of your right hand. So both of the knees right now are in a 90-degree angle. So you have a nice bend, your right knee is stacking over the right ankle, and then that left hip is over that left knee. So if we're feeling a nice little stretch here, stay right here. Hands can be pressing into your mat, or you can also press your hands into all of your pillows too. So that's gonna be another option. To get a little deeper into this pose, you'll take your left toes, you'll tuck them under, you'll lift that left knee up, and then you'll gently place it back down on the mat, top of the foot pressing into the mat. So this is gonna get a little bit deeper into the hip flexors and maybe into that right hamstring. Next, support the upper body. So you can keep everything pressing into your props, You can also keep your hands pressing into your mat. And we'll be here for 3 minutes. And so I want you to really roll those shoulders back. You relax through the jaw. And I want you to send all that breath and energy to your left hip flexor and your left hamstring. So deep inhales in and slow exhales out. I like to think that they call this pose dragon pose because once we start to get into it for a little bit longer than 30 seconds, then we really start to get emotions and fire and just kind of a lot of feelings that come up in this pose because we store a lot of our energy and frustrations down in those hips. So I really want you to breathe through anything that you're feeling, any tightness, any tension in the muscles. You need to really slow down that breath. Take the inhale in, and that slow exhale out. You're about halfway, so if you need to adjust, maybe go a little deeper so you can bring the forearms down a little bit deeper by maybe removing a pillow. And remember, relax the shoulders. Relax through the jaw. About a minute left here. So really fight through those urges to move. Breathe, 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 breathe. Last 30 seconds, you have an option of maybe rolling to the outer edge of that right side of the foot onto the pinky. That's going to get a little deeper into that right inner hip. Okay, slowly start to press the hands into your mat, your bolster, lifting the upper body up, and then gently, slowly sending those hips behind. So moving through here, flexing the foot, and then coming back. So we're just getting movement back into the left hip flexor, the right hamstring. So just gently rocking forward, rocking back. All right, move your props out of your way. And then if you have your books or your blocks, you can put them off to the side. Bring your right leg in line with that right hip. So we call this half splits. Just gently flex that right foot, straighten that right leg, and then send the hips back. And then you can prop your hands up on blocks, books, or you can still have your hands on the floor. But actively pulling those right toes towards the upper body. And then we'll be here for 3 minutes. Once again, finding your edge. Once you find that stretch, that nice stretch in the hamstrings, stay there. Breathe through it. Let the muscles start to loosen up. And if you're using your blocks, very similar, or your books, just take your books, turn them towards their side, the long way, and then use your books to prop your hands up. Really flex that right foot, toes pointing up. Slowly start to shift forward. Set the props off to the side. Press the hands into the mat and then gently place the right knee back in line with the left. Coming back to tabletop, I'm gonna give you a couple options here for counter poses. So a lot of hips and hamstrings. The first thing is to take nice big circles in the hips. So a couple in one direction, and then rotate it in the other. If you want to get more into those feet and the legs and pedaling them out, then you have the option of coming into down dog, and then just bending the knees one at a time. So counter posing, so that we can get those muscles to start to loosen up, especially if you've been kind of holding them in an intense pose for a while. So just finding any movements here that you feel your body needs. And then we've got the other side. So then just really taking the time here to move through a counter pose, starting to get the muscles to loosen up. And you'll notice they may feel really tight when you come out of a yin yoga pose. Once you start to create a little bit of movement within the body, then those muscles will start to loosen up. So I always like to tell people, don't worry if you feel like you've aged a little bit in a pose. It's really just because the muscles have a lot of pressure on them. And so they're gonna feel tense and tight. And that's why we do those counter poses afterwards. We just get movement back into the body. All right, let's set up for the other side now. So the left leg is gonna be the one that's gonna come forward. So however many props that you used, if you used a lot of pillows and you were stacking them up, or if you're using your blocks, your books, that's also an option. But coming back to tabletop, and then let's make sure the hips are over the knees. And then when we find that nice alignment, then take the left foot, step it forward. So we have that, once again, 90-degree bend in both knees. So first place, start here. We really want to make sure that that left knee stays stacked over the left ankle, that we don't extend it over the ankle. We either keep it stacking or gently behind. So that's always working on protecting our knee joints. You can stay right here. If you feel like this is stretching the hip flexor, the hamstrings, by all means, stay right here. Listen to your own body. Next, if you'd like to get deeper into this pose, tuck the toes under, lift that right knee up, and then gently place it back down. So now we're getting into a little bit deeper dragon pose, and we're working more on that right hip flexor, that front part of the right thigh. Now, hands can stay in the mat, pressing, lifting that upper body, rolling the shoulders back down. If you'd like to get a little deeper, this is where all of your pillows come in handy. So they come underneath that upper body, and then just gently rest the forearms or even press the hands into your pillows as well. And then once you have found your expression of this pose, then I want you to really focus on eliminating those little movements and using your breath to calm the mind and the body. So my breaking point in this pose is about 30 seconds in. I get really excited for the first 30 seconds. I'm like, great, this feels awesome, I'm stretching. And then 30 seconds after that, I wanna throw things. I wanna toss my pillow. Internally, I'm screaming because my muscles are working and they're stretching out. And so trying to eliminate all of that within the mind and really just trying to make it about your breath. Make those inhales go in and those exhales soften muscles. And sometimes it helps to even count your breath. I like to say the longer the inhale, the longer the exhale, the more seconds that it eats up. We're already halfway. These last 30 seconds, you have an option of rolling onto the outer edge of that left foot, the pinky side, so that's gonna get a little more into the inner hip. on that left leg. All right, slowly start to lift that upper body up. So pressing into your props or the mat, and then gently sending that hip back, flexing the foot. Move the props off to the side. And then gently rock forward and back. So this gets a little bit movement back into that right hip flexor. So we're just making movement here, letting it open back up. And then we'll start to move into half splits on the other side. So right knee stays stacked underneath that right hip, blocks, books, and then slowly flex the left foot. So once again, an intense hamstring stretch here. So really actively flexing the foot and then keeping the knee and that right leg stacked directly under the right hip. And then once again, we're here for roughly 3 minutes. So last really intense pose, and then the rest of them are going to be on our backs. A little bit more gentle, supported poses before we move into a final shavasana. And try to relax through the shoulders. If you're gripping the jaw, try to relax the jaw. About a minute left. All right, slowly start to shift everything forward. Go ahead and set your props off to the side. Hands come down on the mat, and then gently bring that left knee back to meet the right. Once again, take some nice big hip circles here. So circling the hips in any direction, and then just make sure that we're rotating in the other direction. And then if you want to come into down dog to get a little bit of movement into the hamstrings, And then just pedaling one knee and the other, feel free to do so. Or just stay in tabletop and then find those nice big hip circles, or even cow cat. All right, couple poses left, and then we are in Shavasana. So I want you to have your blanket wherever your head's gonna be. So placing that at the very top of your mat behind you. And then either a block or maybe a pillow or two just off to the side. So those are gonna be the two props that we're gonna use. We're going to make our way all the way down to our mat. So slowly rolling down, or just gently elbow coming all the way down. And then the feet are going to stay in line with the hips and pressing into the mat. So nice bend in the knees, and then the feet are about hip distance apart. Supported bridge is what we're moving into, and you have a couple of options here. You can slide the pillow underneath the sit bones so that it's supporting the low back. And you can make this any height you want. If you have one pillow, you can try one pillow, and you can maybe even add a second pillow too as well. Just letting the body rest on your pillow. If you have a block, same thing, the block can go just below that low back and come into the supported bridge. Once again, we'll stay here for 3 minutes. And then just letting the body be supported. Tuck the shoulders under and away from the ears. And you have a couple options here with those hands. You can just let them fall beside the hips. Or if it feels good to let them reach overhead, you can do that as well. So props underneath that low back, and the hips are going to be pillows or sliding that block underneath, and just letting the hips rest on your block if you have one. And then once again, bringing awareness to the body, softening through any areas that feel like they're holding tension still. Closing the eyes and just letting the mind wind down. About 30 more seconds here in bridge, supported bridge. We'll slowly bring the arms back beside the body if they're not there. We'll press through the feet, lift the hips up, and then take whatever prop is underneath us and slide it out. Gently taking the knees and hugging them into the chest, and then keeping that low back on the mat and just gently rocking side to side. So giving the low back a massage, just letting it rock on the mat, side to side, knees either just come into that movement, or you can also circle the knees as well. We'll move into a supine spinal twist. So knees are going to stack in line with those hips, and then we'll bend the knees at a 90-degree angle. Arms are going to go off to the side. They can either be in a T shape, or you can goalpost those arms. Lift the knees up and then lower them slowly over to the right side of the mat. Now, if you have props, you can always take a pillow and then place it underneath and just gently let your knees rest on top of that pillow. And then your gaze will come over the opposite shoulder, so turning your head towards your left shoulder. Slowly lift the knees up, and then we're going to lower them over to the left side. So same thing, if you have something to prop the knees up on, if that feels better, feel free to do so. Gaze comes over that right shoulder, and then once again, coming into the supine spinal twist. Slowly bring the knees back to the middle. And then we'll hug them in towards the body. And then start to move into our final pose of class, which is Shavasana. Now, I had you put your blanket at the top of your mat because if you slide that blanket underneath your head, it's going to give a nice little cushion for your neck. And then a pillow can always slide underneath those knees just to get them a little bit off of your mat and the floor. So sometimes laying completely flat on our back can be a little challenging in Shavasana, especially if we have any kind of tightness in the low back or anywhere else in our body. So you want to get the wiggles out and you want to tuck the shoulders under and you want to feel fully supported and letting the arms fall beside the body. Finding all the props that you need to make Shavasana work and be comfortable. And then start to close the eyes. We'll take a really quick Shavasana here, approximately about 2 minutes. If you would like to stay a little longer in Shavasana, you're always welcome to. But just for purposes of the class today, we've got about a 2-minute Shavasana. And so really encouraging your mind to relax. You've got 2 minutes to think of nothing, to clear the mind, to let it calm down, and really give back to yourself. And so often, Shavasana can be the hardest pose. And it really comes down to getting out of that mind and just letting it be. If you find that your mind tends to wander, I want you to visualize a dry erase board in front of you. And as thoughts, anything pops into your head, I want you to visualize writing it down on your whiteboard that's in front of you. And when that thought is there and you've written it out, I want you to slowly visualize just erasing it away. And repeating this as often as you need until your whiteboard is completely clear. You slowly find some movement and awareness back into the body. So wiggling the fingers, And wiggling the toes. Reach the arms overhead for a long body stretch. Fingertips and toes the opposite sides of the room. And then when you are ready, start to roll onto either side and then just rest that bicep or rest that head on the bicep. And when you're ready, slowly beginning to press yourself up to a seat, sitting up tall, just like we started at the beginning of class, and then draw the hands into heart center, press the thumbs into the chest, and then bow the gaze. Closing the eyes, sealing our class in with some final words here. And Yin Yoga reminds us to slow down. It also reminds us that it's okay to slow down. We move really fast through our lives, through work, through social, through anything that we're doing. And so Yin reminds us that sometimes to take just a few minutes to close our eyes and to just be is totally okay. So thank you so much for slowing it down with me in this yoga practice. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Namaste.